Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Davos in the Desert. We're pleased to invite you to join us for another one of our company conferences, our industry conferences. Today's focus will be the wellness industry. We'll have an opportunity to listen to several companies that are leaders in developing wellness products. My name is David Wanatik. We appreciate your joining us. We appreciate some questions that we received beforehand. And we'll get started in just a minute. As part of our promotions, we did promise to give 5 copies of my book on business model validation. I'm not trying to push it, but we did offer it in as a promotion for you to join the program. So the first out of the 5 people that will receive a copy, if you want it, is Joel Hausman from Ontario. So, okay, so let's kick off the program. Let me invite the first speaker. The first company that will speak to us is TheraLight. TheraLight was founded in 2018 and is currently headquartered in London, Utah. TheraLight is primarily focused on developing non-invasive photomedicine technology. The company has grown to become a worldwide leader with over 1,000 customers worldwide. TheraLight is currently FDA registered, Health Canada approved. It's received a number of other certifications. In 2020, TheraLight became the first full-body light therapy company to receive space technology certification. In 2024, TheraLight was issued a patent from the United States Patent and Trademark Office that represents a milestone for the company's commitment to innovation and technology. Speaking to us today is Ms. Valerie Krossin, who is Educational Director at TheraLight. So Valerie, thank you very much for joining us.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having us.
So maybe you can just give us an overview of the TheraLight product.
Absolutely. So TheraLight is a full body red light therapy device. Red light therapy is pretty much a buzz or a craze actually right now in the wellness industry for a great number of reasons. A tiny bit about my background first to give it a little bit of context. I spent 20 years as a nurse. In 2008, I moved into the red light therapy industry after a personal and very profound therapeutic response. I won't get into it too deep, but I have a bad neck from a couple car accidents and a horse accident as a child, and I had a serious flare-up that 5 weeks of the inability to use my right arm. And because I had just left nursing to be a consultant, I was actually uninsured for the first time in my life, and it hadn't occurred to me that it was going to be a problem. And so I tried everything possible. I was told I needed surgery. 5 weeks of the worst pain in my life. And I finally desperately tried a technology I had personally put in a box of labeled voodoo. The person that introduced it to me had shared things with me that said it was going to cure all sorts of diseases and conditions, and I had not even heard of it in 20 years of nursing. So I slightly arrogantly dismissed it as not real until I was desperate and in need. And I found a local practitioner because I'd tried everything else and none of it worked. And over the course of 3 sessions, I not only got better, I've still never had the surgery they told me I needed today. I still have a very bad neck. It's not changed a bit because mechanical is mechanical, but I do manage that condition very well with light. So that's what got me, if you will, all in on this technology. And I started in 2008 when nobody knew it existed. And my peers thought I was honestly kind of crazy for leaving medicine and moving into red light therapy. It has since expanded dramatically because we understand the math and physics of light now. There was almost no research back then. There are now over 50 published papers a month. From cognitive health to aches and pains and creaky joints to sports performance and everything in between, which makes it, frankly, seem a little bit too good to be true. There are literally over 40,000 published studies, whether they're laboratory studies or randomly controlled trials. So the evidence is now profound, so much so that medicine is actually embracing it as well. We came through grassroots, if you will, individuals that thought outside the box, health professionals and laypersons alike, and it's now moved into what I would call everyday conversations. As a matter of fact, let me see if I can pull my stacks out of order here. I just wanted to share this with you. I can find it. Give me a second. I know my slides inside out. I just took them out of order. The market trends right now Currently, there's a $1.2 billion evaluation in 2023 for red light therapy devices. Recently, 1.5 million searches per month, up over 82% from 2023, just on the phrase red light therapy. When you connect it to pain, there was a point when it was literally the top search phrase in the internet. It's pretty exciting stuff. Projections to grow to 3.5 billion by 2033, and it's incredibly versatile. It can fit into any type of wellness practice, any health practice, and any home, actually, which is where about half of our devices have landed.
Okay. So what are the primary reasons? I know you mentioned some of the reasons that people buy them. Is it just to feel good, or is it to treat chronic pain?
Right. So the actual target customer for full body red light therapy is quite diverse as well. So in athletics, light has been shown properly dosed. I'm going to say that a few times because it does matter. Light is dose dependent based on physics principles. And so in athletics, there's a research article that was published about a year ago that said it may be considered an unfair advantage in sports medicine because it significantly reduces recovery time. Safe, non-invasive, cannot harm you. So when an athlete climbs into a red light bed on a consistent basis, not only is it reparative, helping to heal the aches and pains and the injuries that they may have, it actually self-protects and allows for a recovery to 12 hours or less. And when I say recovery, they measure it in delayed onset muscle soreness, the number of repetitions that can be performed in an exercise, and a blood marker called creatinine kinase, which is a measurement of muscle damage. So the studies around that, which they're now a significant number, all indicate significant recovery, literally 12 hours less. And when you compare that to without light, it's 72 hours or more. And most of the professional athletes and collegiate athletes train so hard, it's their number one weakness. So for example, I put a product into Clemson University about 2.5 years ago. They now have 10 units because it's just so significant to their recovery as a team. And we're all over professional sports as well, collegiate and professional.
So when
So
you
that's
say,
one. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. So when you say dose dependent, does that mean that the first interaction a user has should be a function of getting a prescription, a recommendation from a doctor, and is there a way to modulate the dosage on the bed?
Great question. So first and foremost, the first question is prescription or not. So there's two ways to deliver red light therapy. There are spot devices and there are panels or full body devices. So the surface areas. And the spot devices are typically LED or lasers, excuse me, and full body and panels are typically LEDs. LEDs by definition, because they're divergent beams and they start at very low power diodes, we just put a lot of them into a single device. They are considered a non-significant risk device by the FDA. There's literally nothing that you can harm yourself with at these parameters. Safe enough that you can even have an exposed eye. And the FDA measures safety to equipment based on the risk to the skin and the eye, especially radiation emitting devices. So the wavelengths that are used also are in a range that are stimulatory to repair cells, stimulatory to cells. In the electromagnetic spectrum, or what's covered under the FDA's boundaries, is radiation emitting devices, goes anywhere from gamma rays to radio waves and everything in between. But red light therapy is a very narrow spectrum. It's between 600 and 1100 nanometers, all of which, when absorbed, stimulate tissue repair. It's what they call a photochemical response. It's not a heating response. Light is absorbed specifically by an enzyme in what's called the electron transport chain. That's the part of the cell that takes the air that we breathe and the food that we eat and makes energy. And why that's profound is because we don't store energy. We use literally what we make every single day. We can store it as fat if we overconsume, but what we need to run this beautiful body of ours is there are trillions of cells, and each of those cells have anywhere between 10,000 and 2 million of these energy production cycles. So it's a massive amount. You basically make your body weight every day in energy, and you use it all up. So if your bodies aren't making it properly, it creates a stress to the cells. And when that stress occurs, it eventually triggers the inflammatory response. And again, eventually every disease that is known to science. It's called oxidative stress, and it's considered the underlying cause of disease. And that's what light works on. So what I mentioned earlier, it seems like light is too good to be true because it works on so many things. It actually does one thing exceptionally well, and that's displace a molecule that blocks the oxygen receptor in this energy production cycle. And so when that molecule, it's a free radical, it gets produced because the cell is under stress for whatever reason, it doesn't even matter what the reason is. But this excess production starts to bind up competitively with the oxygen receptor. So your cell is basically not breathing like it's supposed to. And when it's not breathing, it's not making enough energy, and it triggers that inflammatory response. So when you shine, again, properly dosed light, and I say that because light has what they call a biphasic dose response. The right amount stimulates, too much inhibits, and way too much can actually be thermal. LEDs are inherently safe and only live in the stimulatory range. And actually, it's hard to get enough power to the deeper targets, and that's the bigger challenge. So again, shining the correct doses onto these cells, absorption of light displaces that molecule. The neat thing is the blood vessels absorb it, creating a transient vasodilatory response, getting rid of that negative molecule and now putting the amounts back to normal numbers, because that molecule is, when in normal quantity, is actually a cell signaler and is designed to coordinate repair. So restores normal function within a cell. So light doesn't make cells do more or less than they're designed. It allows for normal function by removing the roadblocks that have prevented it from doing what it's designed. So now then the oxygen attaches, the cell starts to breathe again, it starts to make the energy required, the inflammatory trigger is gone, so inflammation starts to come down, and healing starts to begin. With light, healing is 30 to 40% faster than without, even in a normal process. So, and again, safe, non-invasive, and has literally 0 side effects.
Okay. If I was feeling pain or if I hurt myself at the gym and I had a TheraLight bed, how would I know? Is there a modulation device where I can modulate the amount of light I'm getting? Okay.
Well, yes and no. So there are 45,000 individual LEDs. They all put out the exact amount of light that we want them to put out, because we don't want people messing with the calculation of dose, right? What they can modify is a pulse frequency. Pulsing has been shown to increase depth of penetration and reduce any risk of thermal injury. It actually, the dark space is as important as the light itself, because it gives the cells time to assimilate that light and put it to work where it's supposed to go to work. But the pulse rate is actually what they call, it's actually the least understood component, but what we do understand is not only is it superior than continuous, but there are different, what they call resonant energies. So your different tissue types vibrate at different pulse rates. Brain, for example, everybody knows alpha, theta, beta, and delta, right? So 10 hertz, 20 hertz, 40 hertz, etc. When you put a human into a strong energy source that is pulsing at a particular frequency, your body starts to resonate with that pulse rate. So you start to vibrate at that rate. When you pull the body into a resonant energy, then it's in an optimal state for healing. 40 hertz specifically has been shown to reduce amyloid plaques in the brain. It's a pretty neat setting. So the more we learn about those settings, the more choices we have. But the bed actually has 5,000 choices. We just don't use them all because there's not enough literature to say why we should. But the ones there is literature, that's the ones we recommend.
Okay. How long do people stay in a bed under, for any particular session?
Typically, it's mathematically dose appropriate between 8 and 20 minutes. So the beautiful thing about light is, even done wrong, it's better than not done at all. The hardest part is to get enough light to the human. So this is the strongest bed in the industry. It combats all those challenges. And 8 minutes, you've got enough to move the needle in the right direction. You can, according to the top researcher in the world, who's out of the Wellman Institute of Photomedicine, his name is Michael Hamblin, and that the Wellman Institute of Photomedicine is Harvard. He says you literally have to be in these full body devices in excess of 8 hours to become where you would be concerned of over-treating. So they're incredibly safe.
Okay. So I guess if there's so much tolerance, it would take 8 hours to fill any bad effects. I guess people don't feel dehydrated or nauseous or burned a little bit.
Well, on occasion, you'll get somebody that does what we call a Herxheimer or a healing crisis. It's an interesting phrase. And for the nurse in me, it was hard for me to embrace. But Herxheimer is actually a medical term. And what happens in light, one of the things, the mechanism of action, the downstream, so the primary and secondary effects is what I described to you earlier. The downstream or tertiary indirect responses are how the different systems are all responding to light. And when you put a whole body into a massive tube with all this light being saturated, then you're getting what a systemic response. You're getting not just a local response, but a systemic response. And it's actually more significant. If I wanted to get a local response and get light deeper, I would use a laser. And so light is delivered in two ways. And we'll talk about that actually in our next presentation on the medical device side. We'll talk about the laser, but on the full body, because we have a systemic benefit, the whole body knows what's going on and the bar starts to raise. One of the most significant benefits to light is immune system response. So when a person first starts using the light bed, if they have something like Lyme's disease or any sort of bacteria or pathogen in their body, because the immune system starts to function more efficiently and more significantly, they can have a very rapid die-off of these pathogens, which release a little tiny poison called endotoxin, and that person starts to feel like they have a low-grade flu. They can get diarrhea, they can get a little bit fatigued, they can get a little bit sore. That's actually a positive. It does, and as long as we warn people it's possible, they don't get stressed by it. They actually typically know. Those are the people that in the category of wellness and longevity, those are your unwell people that are trying to recover their health. It's a massive market for red light therapy because they've exhausted all of what modern medicine has to offer oftentimes and what natural medicine has to offer, and they're still looking, they're still hurting, they're still tired, whatever it is, and they tend to find themselves into red light therapy devices because it's so significant for their conditions.
Okay. Are there age ranges or weight limits that dictate who can use the machines?
Yeah, great question. Technically, no. So light, again, not safe, non-invasive, and it cannot harm you. So on the age side first, under 18 parental consent. But there's 12-year-olds that are just as big as some small adults, right? So it's more of a size thing. If they're young, they tend to be healthier as an organism, so they need less light to get you there. So when you're using red light therapy, the guidance for utilization is using it up to five to 6 times a week until you meet your health or your personal goals, and then reduce to 2 to 3 times a week for maintenance. It takes more light to get you healthy than to keep you healthy. If you're already healthy, like an infant, it wouldn't take much time at all to address whatever the consideration is. I actually had a practitioner reach out recently asking about meningioma. They had a neural tube defect, and they had a surgery, and they were wanting to know if they could use the light for this infant. And I said, that's parental consent, and then gave them guidance on the dosing, because it's always, again, about dosing. That little tiny person doesn't need much light. So 1 to 2 minutes is all they need to be in the bed. Your big football players, you want them at the top side because they're such big human beings, right? So it's again, you can't hurt anybody, but you can do better if you give them the appropriate doses.
But just the size of the machine, is there a maximum?
No weight limit. No, 550 pounds. Very difficult to exceed that.
Okay. And it seemed like a silly question, but is there like an emergency escape? So I'm thinking if my father, an older person, was in there and got a little scared, and maybe it's kind of heavy to push the top up. How would that person feel comfortable?
Yeah, it's a great question. Number one, the lid is, because it is heavy, is on hydraulic arms. So the hydraulic arms make it lift very easily. So anybody can just push it up and climb out. But both ends are actually open as well. They could crawl out the end if they really felt they needed to.
Okay. And just as far as where this is placed, is this machine placed in some gyms? As well?
Our 50% of our devices are actually in, I used to say high net worth homes, but it's not that so much anymore. I probably have the 50% personal use, I would say 75% of that's high net worth homes. But I have now as many clients that have gone to a recovery center, used it for a significant amount of time, and then they view it as buying another car, because we have a smaller device that's price pointed at about $60,000. And so that's not too different from a car these days, right? So they're bringing them into their homes as well. So it's actually not about, it's about affordability based on your value system, frankly. The places that typically place these, the highest one is honestly, personal use. Then we have your medical practices, your PTs, chiropractors, and pain management centers. Those tend to be recovery centers. I would say is the biggest commercial. Things like the cryotherapy locations.
Mm-hmm. To be able to monetize this, if I wanted to start a storefront and buy 3 of these machines, what kind of regulatory approvals would I need to get to offer these services?
As long as you have a certificate of occupancy saying that your building is ready to go, there's no regulatory prerequisites for this product. It's considered a non-significant risk device. Same class as dental floss, according to the FDA. So anybody can own one, anybody can put one in.
Okay. And can they be leased as well, or is it only purchase?
Currently, we just sell them. There is dialogue going on right now, and I think there's a significant market for somebody that wants to purchase them and lease them to individuals for a return on investment, an interest rate for or whatever that looks like. But as a manufacturer, which is our expertise, we're not great at marketing and those sorts of things. So we are exceptional at building equipment. So right now we sell them directly. Lenders have no issue buying, it's capital equipment. They qualify for the capital equipment tax incentives at the end of the year. There's 2 of them, which is nice. I think I've answered your question there.
Yeah, that's good. Are there other components like razor blade type things that one needs to buy on a fairly regular basis to make the machine continue working?
Actually, no. Right now, there's no consumable for the business owner. We actually, though, have recently developed and patented what's called a topical clearing agent. What that does is make the stratus corneum, which is the first layer of your skin, basically invisible to light. So the number one barrier to light penetrating into the body and reaching the places we want it to is our skin. So this topical now will make the skin basically see-through and allow about approximately 30% more light in, which means more significant outcomes. That will be ready to release very shortly, I would say in the next 1 to 2 months. We've gotten all of it. We're just designing the label now, frankly. So compare that to the tanning industry. If you ask any tanning bed owner, and I get calls all the time from them, the consumable is as valuable to them as the equipment. So this device the LEDs are lifetime rated. We literally have a lifetime warranty on them. This product is built like a tank. It's going to run all day, every day for a business owner. The typical ROI on a product like this in a business that's open approximately 60 hours a week is you should be making $18,000 to $25,000 a month on your product. And I give that range because by the time you get to 50 to 60% capacity, your peak hours are full and your clients are starting to get a little bit squeaky about being able to get in the product. I actually just got a testimony voluntarily yesterday from a client that put their second unit in for that very reason. And now they're back to being full in both beds, but they've spread it out and it's not painfully full. The owners actually joke because they have to come in early or block out time to get to use their own product during the business hours. So it's a strong revenue earner just from the non-consumable. But when you add that consumable, if you look at the tanning industry again, those consumables are quite expensive. I mean, you'll buy a bottle of tanning lotion for $75 to $100. It's crazy. But that's a great revenue stream and it's consumable.
And is the bed, is that foam or what makes the patient comfortable?
It's actually an acrylic, hard acrylic flat piece. We do have a see-through bolster for under the knees and a see-through pillow because you don't want anything that blocks light. A person should technically be in it completely naked, so it's a private room. However, some people aren't comfortable with that. Anything that you have on for clothing will block absorption and reduce the benefit in that particular area. Black actually being the least interfering because some colors can get through black material. But the point I'm making is it's not. It's also the arched top is significant enough that people can put their feet flat on the glass so that there's no low back issues. And again, you're only in it about 12 minutes as an average. So it's not a challenge for most individuals. The bottom being flat makes it easy to get in and out of, even if you're a senior person, because there's ways to get in and out. There's little slider bars and things like that that handicapped people can get in and out of even. So, and the top opens large enough to be able to facilitate that as well.
Okay. So a question that came in, was any interaction with insurance or third-party payers?
No, because it's not a by prescription device. So it doesn't even, so it does fall into, however, a lot of the companies, I think corporate wellness is another massive opportunity for full body red light therapy. A couple of reasons. Your health savings plans can cover it because it's a wellness device that's proven to be beneficial for longevity and wellness. But when you talk about corporate wellness, your C-suite folks, they're the most expensive people in the room because they've been developed for 20 years or more, correct? They're also the aging population, so their health risks are higher. Keeping these folks healthy and honestly stress reduction, which is significant. One of the things that light has been shown to do too is downregulate the autonomic fight or flight response. People start falling asleep in the bed about 2 minutes in after they've used it for a week or two. That parasympathetic response, the stress, reducing that stress response is one of the reasons Clemson has 10 units, frankly, because those athletes are under so much stress, as you can imagine. But so are, so many other individuals in just the workforce. And so bringing those stress levels down, and we've gotten, and it's anecdotal because we're not allowed to make claims, but the most common claims is the best sleep they've ever had the first night they use it, reduction of stress and anxiety. I hear that one more than I can count. And then the sleep part is also because it helps to normalize what's called circadian rhythms. And we are so in front of these devices that have blue light all the time, we've disrupted our sleep patterns. So that's one of the first and most significant things that is noted as well. But you add, the number one prescribed pharmaceutical is antidepressants. So you bring that into the mix, this anxiety and depression component, it's a big player. And pain is actually, even though it's not designed for pain like our lasers will take pain away in 10 minutes, no matter where I point it, the bed does reduce pain because it reduces that inflammatory component and stimulates healing. So a couple of weeks in, people come in and tell the business owner, every single business owner says to me, they don't tell me what they start for. They tell me one or two things, but by the time they've been in it 2 to 3 weeks, they're giving me this long list of things that got better that they weren't expecting to get better. So when people start using the bed on a consistent basis, they truly become not addicted because it's not a physical addiction, but they like the way that it feels. So they become very long-term, very consistent client base. You don't lose, there's not a huge attrition rate.
I'm not sure. Do you market the TheraLight through like mattress stores and bed stores?
It's a great question. I was recently with my daughter at the Sleep Number, considering one of those, and I called my boss while I was there and said, we need showroom floors. It's time. We've gotten enough publicity now we have some very strong influencers in the wellness industry that love our product. It's been on Joe Rogan and several of these podcasts as a result. Our specific product, just because they're talking about how wonderful they feel in it, right? And with some of these influencers. And I said to my boss, I said, we need showroom floors. This needs to be where people can see them and take them home if they choose. The bed I was looking at, by the way, was almost as much. Well, it wasn't quite, but it was a pretty significant number. And but so everyday people will do it.
Yeah, and I would think if I owned a mattress store, a bed store, I would want one of these, even if I never sold one, because you have a pricing umbrella. You have your product at 60,000. The beds are less expensive. I could increase the price of my beds $500,000. Still be a lot cheaper than 60,000.
Right. And I actually think it's going to happen first in your showroom floors of spas and the pool businesses. I've actually been in contact because for the exact same reason, people that are coming in to buy spas and pools and things, they've got the budget for this type of, so it's a win-win. And there tend to be people that are active and healthy.
Mm-hmm. Are there alarms? So you mentioned that a lot of people fall asleep in a few minutes.
Oh, it's not an alarm, but when the light turns off, it goes clunk, just a really gentle clunk, and all the lights go out, and it does wake you right up. We're actually, one of the advancements we're considering is to fade that light out, but we have to do some sort of a chime to make sure they wake up. Once in a blue moon, an owner has reported back to me they have to go tap on a door and wake somebody up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but if I had it at my house, and I lived alone,
You're just going to wake
it takes
up.
20 hours to cause damage, but
Oh, no, the bed turns off automatically after a preset time. So it's
okay.
controlled by a tablet. And so it automatically defaults and turns itself off. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, in kind of getting close to wrapping up, anything you want to say about international expansion or product pipeline initiatives?
So international, we have several, we have a handful of individuals that are interested in exclusive distribution in different countries. I'm working with one in Japan right now. We've got one I'm also working with in Australia, and we currently have one in Germany that includes Germany and Switzerland both. So there are our distribution is significantly less outside of the United States, but it is starting to catch hold, and we're getting requests for distribution partners all the time. We're vetting those because currently we're doing almost everything in-house. We can manage our but there will be a time when we'll need those.
Mm-hmm. And are all the products manufactured in Utah?
Our distribution centers in Utah. So here's we're nearly at the Made in USA status. We're super close. We're excited by that. So the majority of our components come literally from the United States. Our diodes come out of Germany. They're the best diodes in the world, quality-wise, and they're medical grade, which matters too. We actually ship them to China, just like everybody else does, for assembly and bring them back home. We're hoping that's going to change as well, but I can't speak to the timelines of that. That's my CEO is working very hard on that right now.
Okay. And then what's going on with the space technology?
We are a member of the space. We were endorsed by the, let me get, you have to forgive me. This has been a couple of years ago, so I don't have this on top. Certified Space Technology. LEDs, when they were putting men on the moon, LEDs improve bone density. So for those that don't have gravity, which keeps our bones strong, and actually, again, stimulates healing. This technology, basically, NASA knew about it before we did for how good it was for the health of the human being. And so because our product is so quality, we got certified by that organization.
Okay. I think we went through most of the questions that we received and some of my own questions. Do you want to make any final statements?
Here's what I think are the industry growth drivers. The increased prevalence of pain and chronic disease in this country is at its all-time high. We have an 80% obesity rate in the United States. Inflammation causes disease, disease causes pain, et cetera, et cetera. It's a revolving cycle. Light addresses the root cause, literally, of almost every chronic disease known to man. So you put somebody in a light bed, they're healthier when they got out than when they got in every single time. There's an increasing number of regulatory approvals for red light therapy. Again, the bed is very simple. It's a registration process, and we have all of those. On the laser side, which we'll talk about next time, there's different regulations, but there's more and more, which means we can say more and more. But right now, it's cleared for or registered for circulation, inflammation, arthritis, pain. I mean, we've got enough by far to go to market, and it's been very successful. Again, non-invasive, no side effects, no specialized staffing required, no huge training required. It's almost a plug and play device. So it's super easy to implement into businesses. And there's, as I mentioned, over 50,000 published studies now. So there's just no refuting its efficacy and its safety, frankly. So that's probably the biggest thing. I've gone through everything else. If you want to see our product line, that's it. We've got a small version and a large version, basically. The small version was designed for home use, but most of our home users want the best product, and that's the large one. It's stronger than the smaller one. So that's it. That's what we have.
Just one final question, and then maybe you should tell us how people can get in touch with you or your colleagues or your website. But the question is there an Ozempic angle to this, good or bad?
One of our intended uses is actually adjunct to obesity as part of a good diet and exercise program. Again, when you are adding oxygen and the cellular metabolism starts to ramp up naturally, typically people lose between 5 to 10 pounds of body fat in the first 6 weeks of use if they have excess body fat. Even slim people get leaner. So that's significant. There's actually been significant research on normalizing. Blood sugar is naturally normalized. So your it's called HOMAR. It's a insulin resistance factor that improves. So the cell membrane is healthier, allowing the insulin to come in, and thereby we're better metabolizing the calories we take in. So it's probably more significant for the things that are caused by diabetes, like neuropathy, et cetera. But again, yes, it is. Now it's not a standalone fat loss product. Lots of people have tried to make it such. That there is technology in that space, but it's significantly stronger devices and bordering on inhibitory. So it has to, and potentially thermal. So it has to be super carefully managed. So this is it's it's with adjunct diet and exercise, and that's how it needs to be done anyway.
Okay, and then finally, how can people get in touch with TheraLight?
So and forgive me because I did not actually put so let me change this really quick and add a phone number. My phone number is 352-459-9917. I'm easy to reach. I answer my phone pretty much 24 hours a day, literally, because I get calls, international calls on a regular basis. My email is Valerie Krossin at TheraLight.com. So I'll pop that in here too for you.
Okay, well, that was an excellent presentation, Valerie Krossin. Thank you so much for introducing us to TheraLight. Very interesting company. Happy to see all that growth and all the good work you're doing. So that ends the session now. We will post the video on our website in a few days. And so we're going to take a break, and we'll come back in a bit and have some more discussions.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the time.
Thank you, Valerie. Okay,
Bye.
goodbye.